This is an iHeart podcast.
She's seen Encanto more times than she can count. And she can count to 10. She mentioned Mirabel in every conversation. But the moment she actually met Mirabel, she was speechless. That's pura magia. Find yours at Walt Disney World Resort.
5 years, 10 months, and 2 days. That's how long it took to grow the 38 inches to ride on Cali River Rapids. But the moment the wait finally ended, that was pura magia. Discover it at Walt Disney World Resort.
Every case that is a cold case that has DNA right now in a backlog will be identified in our lifetime.
On the new podcast, America's Crime Lab, every case has a story to tell, and the DNA holds the truth.
He never thought he was going to get caught. And I just looked at my computer screen. I was just like, gotcha.
This technology's already solving so many cases.
Listen to America's Crime Lab on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello. From Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. This August, we're bringing back some of our favorite Womanica episodes you might have missed. All month, we'll be talking about pink-collar workers. These women revolutionized jobs that have traditionally been called women's work. Through their lives, they created a more just and humane world for us today. With that, here's one of our favorite episodes. Hello. From Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. This month, we're talking about workers, women who fought for labor rights and shaped the way we do business today. They advocated and innovated to make the office, wherever it is, a more equitable place. Today, we're talking about a Japanese feminist who used her literary prowess and collective action to bring about social reform. Let's talk about Hiratsuka Raichō. Hiratsuka Raichō was born Hiratsuka Haru in 1886 in Tokyo, the second daughter of a civil servant and his wife. Haru was born a tomboy. She was competitive and strong-willed. Her mother spent hours trying to tame Haru's hair, oiling and brushing it into submission. It was an era where femininity and submission were prized. Haru just didn't fit in. In 1899, when she was 14 years old, Japan passed the Girls' High School Order. It established high schools for girls across the country, which, on the surface, sounds great. But the order also said that the purpose of these schools was quite simple: to grow good wives and wise mothers. Haru hated high school. She excelled academically, but she ditched class whenever she could, especially when the class focused on traditional feminine virtues. At the beginning of morals class, she would calmly stand up and walk right out of the room, and the school building entirely. Her mother never asked any questions about why she was coming home early. But college, that was different. It was a place for Haru to explore her newfound interests in religion, ethics, and philosophy. At the recently opened Japan Women's College, Haru became obsessed with Zen Buddhism and European novels. Meanwhile, Japan was in the midst of modernization. Women's education was on the rise. Middle-class women were entering the workforce. But there were still lots of inequities. A woman couldn't enter into a legal contract without her husband's permission. If he died, she couldn't get access to his estate. And it was a crime for a woman to commit adultery, while for men, there were no legal repercussions. At the time, Haru was more concerned with cultivating her own inner world. She graduated from college in 1906 when she was 20 years old, and continued living at home. She read books, got deeper into her Zen practice. In 1907, she joined a women's literary group. And a year later, in 1908, her world turned upside down. Haru became involved with one of the group's lecturers, Morita Sohei. Morita was married, but he and Haru became romantically involved and decided on a pact. They'd hike into the mountains and take their own lives together. But things didn't go exactly as planned. Police learned of their plot, and they were found alive. Newspapers reported all the salacious details. The event sent shockwaves through society. It didn't help that Morita wrote a best-selling novel about it. Haru, meanwhile, was left a social pariah, essentially overnight. Her father was pressured to quit his government job, and Haru began to gain her own social consciousness. Haru helped to start a literary magazine called Seito, or Blue Stockings, a reference to a group of women intellectuals from 18th century Europe. Haru also adopted a new pen name, Raichō. It was the name of a bird Haru often saw in the woods, but the name's two characters, translated literally, mean something a little different: Thunderbird. In 1911, the first edition of Seito opened with the now iconic line, "In the beginning, woman was the sun." Haru, now Raichō, called for women to reclaim their self-worth, creativity, and power, and fulfill their potential as humans. In the beginning, woman was the sun, and she could be again. Seito became the first Japanese literary journal in Japan that was by women for women, one that wasn't focused on advice for keeping house and raising families. Seito ended up running for 5 years. Its writers were called the New Women, and they explored issues of gender, sexuality, birth control, sex work, taboo topics. By 1915, Raichō had handed the magazine's reins over to one of her colleagues. Raichō began living with her younger artist lover and had 2 children with him out of wedlock. As she struggled to balance motherhood and work, Raichō became increasingly concerned with social reform. She argued that mothers with young children deserved government aid. Around that time, women were allowed to join a special division of the country's first labor union. Workers had started striking in steel mills and shipyards. Collective action, pushing for higher wages, better working conditions. In 1919, Raichō visited a textile mill and was appalled by what she saw. These mills were a major part of Japan's economy, and they were largely staffed by young rural farm girls, some as young as 10 years old, who'd work late into the night. Young women workers at textile mills made up more than half of the Japanese industrial labor force. Raichō knew things needed to change. She returned to the public eye, ready to once again become a leader in the women's movement. Raichō and 2 other activists established the New Women's Association. Their overarching goal was social reform and bettering the lives of working women. But they knew that in order to do that, they'd need to be able to vote. But before they could vote, they'd need to be allowed to get involved with politics at all. So the organization campaigned to make that possible. They started a journal and published articles about suffrage, and they organized petitions calling for a revision of Article 5 in the Public Order and Police Law, which banned women from even attending political gatherings, let alone participating in them. By 1922, the article had been amended. Raichō spent the rest of her life fighting for women's rights. In 1953, she established the Japan Federation of Women's Organizations and served as its first president. She was the vice president of the Women's International Democratic Federation. And in 1962, she formed the New Japan Women's Association. Hiratsuka Raichō passed away in 1971. She worked until the very end. Thanks for listening to this best of episode of Womanica. For more information, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz Kaplan, my favorite sister and co-creator. Join us tomorrow for another one of our favorite episodes honoring pink-collar workers. Talk to you then.
Every case that is a cold case that has DNA right now in a backlog will be identified in our lifetime.
On the new podcast, America's Crime Lab, every case has a story to tell, and the DNA holds the truth.
He never thought he was going to get caught. And I just looked at my computer screen. I was just like, gotcha.
This technology is already solving so many cases.
Listen to America's Crime Lab on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Stuff You Should Know guys have made their own summer playlist of their must-listen podcasts on movies.
It's me, Josh, and I'd like to welcome you to the Stuff You Should Know Summer Movie Playlist. What screams summer more than a nice, darkened, air-conditioned theater and a great movie playing right in front of you?
Episodes on James Bond, special effects, stuntmen and women, disaster films, even movies that change filmmaking, and many more. Listen to the Stuff You Should Know Summer Movie Playlist on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast.